My fellow citizens, I come to you today with a strong message about democracy, a strong message about freedom, a strong message about family values. Okay, we got to scrap that. Hey, yo, it's me, Scotty J. I want to welcome you to a very special edition of Trailer Trash TV election special this time around. You know, I'm not going to preach the gospel, so to speak. I'm not going to take sides. I'm not going to be red. I'm not going to be blue. I'm not going to pick on any one candidate in particular. I'm not going to pick on any one party in particular. What I'm going to do is I'm going to refresh memory to a time when values were simple, when things weren't taken for granted, as it were. We're going to take a look back at some classroom films, some government classroom films this time around on this very special election night special for Trailer Trash TV. And we're going to start right out with something really cheesy, really over the top, very trippy, some might say, a little something called 200. This was a little short animated film that was released in the year 1976 on our country's 200th birthday, the bicentennial, as it were. And I know 9/10 of you out there that were born in the 1980s and beyond have no idea what the bicentennial was. Well, take a look at this, and you'll soon realize why the 70s scarred so many people. Following that, we're going to take a look at a film that was done in 1945, a little something called Democracy. It's more of a social science film as to what democracy is and the freedoms we have, the freedoms we should have, and the freedoms that are so easy to lose. Should we take them for granted? But here we go with 200 and Democracy. Check it out on this very special Trailer Trash TV election special.
Democracy has been defined in many ways. We would all agree that democracy includes government. Let's see if we can, each one of us, sharpen of democracy. We know that democratic words and forms have been written into laws. But it is the way people practice democracy that really counts. Let's ask this man about defining democracy. He studies communities and the way people live in them. He goes about his job scientifically, observing, recording, analyzing, and reporting.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. Students of society have been reporting their observations and analyses for a good many centuries. And as yet, there's not one single definition of democracy that they would all accept. There's one point, however, they would all agree on, and this is it. In thinking seriously of democracy, one must define his words carefully and use them consistently. When you have your own definitions clear, you know exactly what to look for in a community.
Many students agree that two important signs of democracy are shared respect and shared power. Let's take shared respect first. Sharing respect means that each shares the respect of all. Not because of his wealth, or his religion, or his color, but because each is a human being and makes his own contribution to the community, from healing its sick to collecting its garbage, from managing its railroads to running its trains. One sign of shared respect in a community is that everybody is given a fair chance to develop useful skills and the chance to put these skills to effective use. And there is shared respect if various groups in the community recognize each other's right to hold different faiths and opinions. And now let's see how we spot the second of the two signs of democracy, shared power. Most observers agree that there is true democracy in a community only if there is shared power. That is to say, only if many people have a share in making decisions that the community will support with force if necessary. More specifically, you can say that power is shared wherever regular popular elections are authorized and are actually held. There is shared power wherever people actually get out voluntarily and vote. And if they can vote without interference or pressure from anybody. There is shared power if office holders are drawn from representative groups in society, if they include men from the farms, men from the law courts, men from the stores, men from the factories, office holders who are drawn from representative groups of the community. In a democratic legislature, shared power shows itself in a strong opposition. Listen.
And that is why I'm confident the governor will have the support of the House on this bill. Mr. Speaker, as usual, the honorable gentleman is quite wrong. He and the governor he serves so dutifully can expect no support for their policy from this House.
A strong opposition is made possible by an effective political party system. The two most important signs of democracy, then, are shared respect and shared power. They, in turn, depend on many conditions. Let's consider two of these conditions: economic balance and enlightenment. Economic balance means that the community contains a large middle-income group.
A relationship between economic balance and democracy has been noted and reported for centuries by students of society. Aristotle said that a government made up of middle-income people has the best chance to be democratic. That was 2,000 years ago in Greece. And well over a century ago in America, James Madison warned that extremes of riches and poverty set group against group.
In past centuries, economic balance was improved when large feudal estates were gradually reorganized into independent farms as one part of the development of democracy. This creation of better economic balance aided the further growth of democracy. The social observers of our time have also noted that the development of democracy usually goes hand in hand with the growth of large middle-income groups. In today's world of giant technology, one of democracy's serious problems is how to maintain flourishing middle-income groups. Another important condition for democracy is enlightenment. Making information available to citizens and giving them the skill with which to judge it. As public education increases, democracy grows. In checking a community for democracy, we must find out whether it provides schools adjusted to the needs of its young people. Just being able to get books and newspapers is no guarantee of democracy. The newspapers of a real democracy meet these tests: balanced presentation of news, disclosure of source, competence of the staff. In applying these tests to newspapers, we find out, first of all, if they report both. See if the news pages contain news only, and if opinion is kept for the editorial page. Next, we see if the paper says plainly who publishes and edits it. We know which side they're on. Newspapers in a real democracy meet a third test: competence of staff. This test requires newspaper men to value accuracy and impartiality and to interpret the news skillfully for the public. The competence test also requires newspaper men to use the services of experts.
I want 500 words on freedom of the press for our anniversary edition. How about it?
But, Professor, you know more about the history of freedom of the press than probably any other man in the country.
Yes, that's right. I mean the responsibility of a free press and other forms of communication like the radio and the movies to enlighten the people into democracy.
When we examine any democratic community, large or small, or just average, we find that we can separate out two distinct signs of democracy: shared respect and shared power. They, in turn, depend on at least two conditions in the community: economic balance and enlightenment. There is no standing still. The more economic balance and enlightenment, the more shared respect and shared power. Democracy is something that's never finished. It wanes with neglect, and it grows with care. If a community works to balance its economy, and if it works to enlighten its citizens, such a community can achieve shared respect, and it can achieve shared power. By working hard at it, the citizens of any community can achieve democracy.
Okay, welcome back to a very special Trailer Trash TV election special. I'm your host, Scotty J, and before I go any further, let me know what you think. sjtrailertrash@yahoo.com, or you can go ahead and call the Trailer Trash TV hotline. That's 612-810-5354. And don't forget to check out Trailer Trash 24/7. You can more than likely, if you're not seeing it already, you can see this on there anytime you want. That's either at video.google.com or at vo.com. That's Trailer Trash TV 24/7. But what we have just seen, a little film called Democracy. I'm not even going to get into 200 because the visuals speak for themselves. But for this film, Democracy, you're probably thinking to yourself now that, okay, we've lost so many freedoms since this film came out. No, we haven't. They're just hiding right now. But for democracy, there's so much we take for granted. Take a look anywhere else around the world. You have people that are still ruled by a king. You have people that have a far, far, far higher rate of poverty than we could ever imagine. But we have so many freedoms that we are taking for granted, and we have to realize what those freedoms are and appreciate what we do have. So you can bitch and moan all you want about who might be in office right now, whether it's at the federal level, whether it's at the state level, whether it's at your local city or county level. We're all in the same melting pot. I mean, this is what America is. It's the great melting pot. Everyone, God, this is going to sound like a hallmark, everyone should be able to get along and work together, and let's hang on to the freedoms that we have. So with that being said, I'm going to take a break, and we're going to come back with, a film that demonstrates the worst case scenario. Stay tuned.
Ike for president, Ike for president, Ike for president, Ike for president. You like Ike, I like Ike, everybody likes Ike for president. Hang out the banner, beat the drum, we'll take Ike to Washington. We don't want John
or Dean
or Harry, let's do that big job right. Just get in step with the guy that's hep, get in step with Ike. You like Ike, I like Ike, everybody likes Ike for president. Hang out the banner, beat the drum, we'll take Ike to Washington. We got to get where we are going, travel day and night for president. Let Adelaide go the other way, we'll all go with Ike. President. You like Ike, I like Ike, everybody likes Ike for president. Hang out the banner, beat the drum, we'll take Ike to Washington, we'll take Ike to Washington.
Now is the time for all good Americans to come to the aid of their country.
Ike for president, Ike for president, Ike for president, Ike for president.
General, during the 1952 campaign, General Eisenhower promised a great crusade.
Too many politicians have sold their ideals of honesty down the Potomac. We must bring back integrity and thrift to Washington.
How's that again, General?
We must bring back integrity and thrift to Washington.
This is Estes Kefauver. That was another promise the General didn't keep.
You know, I'm looking at this next film, and it may bear strong similarities to some people presently in office or in office in years past, but this is a case of worst case scenario. What could happen if? It's a film called Despotism, also from 1945. This was the follow-up film to Democracy, also from 1945, that you had just seen in the previous block. You know, regarding politics, it's a real touchy subject in any conversation. It's one of two things you never, ever want to bring up at any family reunion, let alone like Thanksgiving, God forbid. You never talk politics, you never talk religion, blah, 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 blah. But, you know, everybody's got their own view on the political system. There is no right candidate, there is no wrong candidate. There is just different views as to how things would and could be run, not necessarily should be run. With that being said, we're going to kick into Despotism from 1945 on this very special Trailer Trash TV election special. Check it out, and we'll be right back.
You can roughly locate any community in the world, somewhere along a scale running all the way from democracy to despotism. One to the democracy end, another somewhere in the middle, and a third. Let's find out about despotism. This man makes it his job to study these things.
Well, for one thing, avoid the comfortable idea that the mere form of government can of itself safeguard a nation against despotism. Germany, under President Hindenburg, was a republic. And yet in this republic, an aggressive despotism took root and flourished under Adolf Hitler. When a competent observer looks for signs of despotism in a community, he looks beyond fine words and noble phrases.
For which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Many observers have found that two workable yardsticks help in discovering how near a community is to despotism: the respect scale and the power scale.
A careful observer can use a respect scale to find how many citizens get an even break. As a community moves towards despotism, respect is restricted to fewer people. A community is low on a respect scale if common courtesy is withheld from large groups of people on account of their political attitudes. If people are rude to others because they think their wealth and position gives them that right, or because they don't like a man's race or his religion. Equal opportunity for all citizens to develop useful skills is one basis for rating a community on a respect scale. The opportunity to develop useful skills is important, but not enough. The equally important opportunity to put skills to use is a further test on a respect scale. A power scale is another important yardstick of despotism. It gauges the citizens' share in making the community's decisions. Communities which concentrate decision-making in a few hands rate low on a power scale and are moving towards despotism. Like France under the Bourbon kings, one of whom said, "The state, I am the state." Today, democracy can ebb away in communities whose citizens allow power to become concentrated in the hands of bosses.
What I say goes, see? I'm the law around here.
The test of despotic power is that it can disregard the will of the people. It rules without the consent of the governed. Look beyond the legal formalities of an election in measuring a community on the power scale to see if the ballot is really free. If the citizens can vote only the way they're told, a community approaches despotism. When legislatures become ceremonial assemblies only and have no real control over lawmaking, their community rates low on a power scale. In a downright despotism, opposition is dangerous, whether the despotism is official or whether it is unofficial.
The spread of respect and power in a community is influenced by certain conditions, which many observers measure by means of the economic distribution and information scales.
If a community's economic distribution becomes slanted, its middle-income groups grow smaller, and despotism stands a better chance to gain a foothold. Where land is privately owned, one sign of a poorly balanced economy is the concentration of land ownership in the hands of a very small number of people. When farmers lose their farms, they lose their independence. This one can stay on, but not as his own boss anymore. To the extent that this condition exists throughout a nation, the likelihood of despotism is increased. In communities which depend almost entirely on a single industry, such as a factory or mine, maintaining economic balance is a challenging problem. If this condition exists over the nation as a whole, so that the control of jobs and business opportunities is in a few hands, despotism stands a good chance. Another sign of a poorly balanced economy is a taxation system that presses heaviest on those least able to pay. A larger part of a small income is spent on necessities such as food. Sales taxes on such necessities hit the small income harder. In the days of the salt tax, feudal despotisms were partly sustained by this and other effects. A community rates low on an information scale when the press, radio, and other channels of communication are controlled by only a few people, and when citizens have to accept what they're told. In communities of this kind, despotism stands a good chance. See how a community trains its teachers.
Bear this in mind. Young people cannot be trusted to form their own opinions. This business about open-mindedness is nonsense. It's a waste of time trying to teach students to think for themselves. It's our job to tell them.
And when teachers put such training into practice, despotism stands a good chance. These children are being taught to accept uncritically whatever they're told. Questions are not encouraged.
How can you ask such a question? Have you got a textbook?
Yes, ma'am.
Does it say here that our law courts are always just?
Yes, ma'am.
Then how dare you question the fact? Sit down.
And so we aren't surprised when...
But it must be true. I saw it in this book right here.
And if books and newspapers and the radio are efficiently controlled, the people will read and accept exactly what the few in control want them to. Government censorship is one form of control. A newspaper which breaks a government censorship rule can be suspended. It is also possible for newspapers and other forms of communication to be controlled by private interests.
I thought I told you to kill that story. It'll cost us a lot of advertising.
If that story goes out, I quit.
All right.
What sort of community do you live in? Where would you place it on a democracy-despotism scale? To find out, you can rate it on a respect scale and a power scale. And to find out what way it is likely to go in the future, you can rate it on economic distribution and information scales. The lower your community rates on economic distribution and information scales, the lower it is likely to rate on respect and power scales, and thus to approach despotism. What happens in a single community is the problem of its own citizens. But it is also the problem of us all, because as communities go, so goes the nation.
Okay, for those of you that hadn't thrown a brick through the TV out of sheer frustration, with sometimes possibly obvious comparisons in this film with some present political leaders, shall we say, for lack of a better term. That was Despotism from 1945. You know, I have to give one big thank you this time around. I got to thank the National Archives, the online National Archives at archive.org. They have so many, not only classroom films, but stock footage, video stills, newsreels, public domain music that's all able to utilize in any production or personal collection. Check out the National Archives, archive.org. They made most of these, not only this special, but the forthcoming Part 2 Trailer Trash TV election special possible. With that being said, I'm going to take a break, and I'm laughing at this next film we're going to be showing because everybody talks about the American dream. So with that being said, we're going to take a break. We'll be right back.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Vice President of the United States, Richard M. Nixon.
I want to talk to you for a moment about civil rights, equal rights for all our citizens. Why must we vigorously defend them? First, because it is right and just. And second, because we cannot compete successfully with communism if we fail to utilize completely the minds and energies of all of our citizens. And third, the whole world is watching us. When we fail to grant equality to all, that makes news, bad news for America all over the world. Now, the record shows there's been more progress in civil rights in the past 8 years than in the preceding 80 years, because this administration has insisted on making progress. And I want to continue and speed up that progress. I want to help build a better America for all Americans.
All right, welcome back to Trailer Trash TV. You know, this last film we're going to be showing, everybody talks about the American dream. Once upon a time, and whether it's your social studies class in elementary school or junior high, whether it's your political science class in high school, whether it's your American history class in high school, everyone learned about capitalism. This is what the American dream was all about. How to start with nothing and make your, whether it's monetary, personal dreams come true. This is a story of capitalism. I want to say it's by Cornet Films. A very fascinating, entertaining, God forbid you might learn something from this. This is Capitalism from 1948. Welcome back to History Class on Trailer Trash TV's Election Special. Stay tuned.
To be late, you know. Oh, I wonder where he is. Oh, hiya, Jim.
Hi.
Well, look, we still have a few minutes before we go on the air. I'd like to tell you about the time that Eleanor and I went down to this...
Oh, let's save the talk. Can't we agree that capitalism is an economic system? A system for the production and distribution of things we need and want?
I won't agree to that. Not until you say something about government, too. There has to be a legal basis for any economic system to operate.
Well, it's easy to see that you have different ideas of what capitalism is. Maybe we should talk about what it is not. It is not a system of strict governmental control and planning in which a dictator or board tells people what jobs they may hold and what goods they may produce.
And it's not a system of government ownership. Let me tell you about something. It shows that the basis of the capitalistic system is private property. It happened when Eleanor and I went down to get the things for the class weenie roast. We went to Mr. Brown's store. Well, That's what I mean. Mr. Brown really owns property. All those store fixtures and the groceries in there, and, well, the whole store. It's his property, and he can do almost anything with it that he likes. We needed weenies. Mr. Brown had weenies. It's as simple as that. You might argue about his prices. Anyway, Eleanor did. But after all, he has a right to earn something for the goods and services he supplies, and he does supply services as well as goods. When we agreed to buy everything from him, weenies, buns, marshmallows, and charcoal, he agreed to give us extra service, deliver everything in his truck. And since we didn't have enough cars, he agreed to make another trip and take a lot of the kids out to the picnic. And he could help us that way because the truck is his private property, and he can do just about anything with it that he wants. That's how a capitalistic system operates. The people own property and use it to provide the goods and services that all of us need.
That's what I mean about government. Mr. Brown's very right to own property is guaranteed by our Constitution. Yes, but, well, Bill's missed the whole point to what happened at Mr. Brown's store. Mr. Brown has property, all right, but that's not what he's interested in. And he does help supply us with things we want. But that's not why he's in business. He's in business to make money. There's the basis of the capitalistic system, the profit motive. He may give service when he has to make a profit. Well, when I complained that his prices were too high, he could see those profits going right out the window if we didn't buy from him. So naturally he offered to help us out with his truck, so he could make a sale and a profit. And just think of all the others who made a profit on those weenies. Cattle growers, meat packers, shippers, distributors, they're all in business to make profit.
Of course they make a profit, and it's a good thing. That's the incentive that makes capitalism work, to give us more of the things that we need. That's the incentive that other economic systems lack.
I think you've both missed the point. It's competition. That's why Mr. Brown offered his truck. He wanted to make sure you'd buy from him and not from a competitor.
And why was he free to make that offer? Freedom of contract. You and Mr. Brown entered into a contract, an agreement. You agreed to buy what you needed from him. He agreed to let you use the truck. In the same way, he got the weenies by entering into a contract with the wholesaler. And he got the truck by entering into a contract with someone else. Under a capitalistic system, you're free to make almost any kind of a contract with anyone.
Freedom of contract, competition, profit motive, private property. And what do they all add up to? Free enterprise. Well, that's what capitalism is. A system of free enterprise. Well, now tell us what free enterprise means. All right. It means that you can go into business wherever and however you please. Anybody can go into any business. Any legal business, that is. But I still say you can't leave government out of the discussion. Government must at least guarantee the right of private property and freedom of contract in order that...
Wyatt, please, everybody. We're on the air in a few seconds. Good afternoon. This is Ray Bennett, acting as moderator for the Western High School Radio Forum. Our topic today, what is capitalism? We hear capitalism, capitalistic system, on every hand, on the radio, in newspapers, magazines, books, in lectures and daily conversation. But just what is capitalism? To start our forum, we will present a few candid interviews, recorded remarks of representative citizens of our town who were asked for their opinions about our capitalistic system.
Capitalism? Well, why should there be any question about it? Hasn't it given us the highest standard of living in the world? We don't have free enterprise, just bureaucratic red tape. The government ought to keep its hands off business.
Freedom of contract? Don't know about that. We've got the union and seniority. I make a living. I should worry.
Where's all this competition we've heard so much about? You call these prices low?
Well, perhaps I'm glad I can work for myself. With capitalism, you take your choice.
It seems that capitalism means different things to different people. Let's hear now from our town treasurer, Mr. John Howard.
We say we live in a capitalistic society. What does that mean? Well, we can point to certain fundamental ideas which we say are part of a capitalistic system. For example, private property. Individuals or corporations may own land, natural resources, buildings of all kinds, machinery and equipment for the production of goods, facilities for the transportation of goods, and the goods themselves. In a capitalistic system, these are usually private property. Another idea fundamental to capitalism is the profit motive. For the sake of profit, we cultivate the land. We build great factories to produce goods. We sell for profit. The goods thus produced, we transport over large distances, still for the sake of profit. Those who have savings often invest or lend them, hoping for a share of profit. And in so doing, help to build the industrial might of the nation. Some other ideas are basic to capitalism. Competition, freedom of contract, free enterprise. What do they mean? Could these rights exist without laws that define and protect them? Do just these few things make up a capitalistic system? Or should something more be said? Perhaps your forum will have some of the answers.
There is more to be said, Mr. Howard. A great deal more. That's why we're holding this forum. Now it's up to you. Listen, consider, discuss. This is your forum. What is capitalism?
So, bottom line, the more things change, the more they stay the same. You just saw capitalism from 1948. This is how America was born. This is a lot of the foundation that made America what it still is. There's a reason that so many people are coming to this country, whether it's people from Mexico, whether it's people from the Middle East, whether it's people from Europe, you know, from France, from Spain, from England. We are the great American melting pot. We are the melting pot that is truly America. Because a lot of these other countries, you cannot even hope to make a living the way you can here. And I don't agree with a lot of the stuff that's happening now. With the immigration bill, I don't agree with necessarily the illegal immigrants. I believe there should be some sort of, and there is, an immigration policy in effect where you become a U.S. citizen. I'm not going to get into the complexities of it, but there is a way to just go through the paperwork, become a U.S. citizen, get your green card, be legal here in this country, and become an American. Either way, it's a way to pursue your dream, to make a living, to make a profit, to make a healthy lifestyle in which you and your family can live. And that's what's great about America. And that's where I'm going to end this particular installment of Trailer Trash TV, this very special Election Night special. And depending on where you're watching this or how you're watching this, stay tuned for part 2. We've got more yet to come. So with that being said, I've been your host, Scotty J. sjtrailertrash@yahoo.com, trailertrashtv.150m.com. Click on Trailer Trash TV 24/7. Watch it anytime you wish. Let me know what you think, not only by email, but 612-810-5354 is the number for the Trailer Trash TV hotline. Take care of yourselves. Don't let anybody pressure you into voting for somebody you don't want to vote for. And with that being said, get out and vote.
president who's seasoned through and through. But that's a doggone season that he won't try something new. A man who's old enough to know and young enough to do. Well, it's up to you, it's up to you, it's strictly up to you. Do you like a man who answers straight, a man who's always fair? We'll measure him against the others, and when you compare, you'll cast your vote for Kennedy and the change that's overdue. So it's up to you, it's up to you, it's strictly up to you. Yes, Kennedy, 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 fine. Kennedy, 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 Kennedy,
This is Senator John Kennedy, the Democratic nominee for the presidency of the United States. One of the problems which concerns me most is our failure to meet the problem of medical care for our older citizens. Some of them are in ill health. Some of them are in your family. And yet under present laws, before they can receive any assistance in the payment of their medical bills, which may be expensive, they must take a pauper's oath. They must say that they are medically indigent. I believe that the way to meet this problem is the way Franklin Roosevelt met it in the Social Security Act of 1935. I believe that people during their working years would want to contribute so that when they retired, when they reach the age of 65 for men or 62 for women, then they can receive assistance in paying their bills. They pay their own way. They live in dignity. They get protection. This is the way it ought to be done. This is the sound way. And I can assure you that if we're successful, we're going to pass this bill next January.
For civil rights 20 years ago, a lot of people said he was ahead of his time. He was. He was ahead of his time when he outlined health insurance for the aged, 16 years before Medicare. He was ahead of his time when he urged a nuclear test ban treaty 10 years before it was signed. He was ahead of his time when he proposed job training for unemployed young people 7 years before the Job Corps. He was ahead of his time when he defined food for peace 5 years before the program saw light. And he was ahead of his time when he dreamed up the Peace Corps 4 years before Congress adopted it. Hubert Humphrey has been ahead of his time for the last 20 years. That's why he's the man we need for the future. Don't just vote for the right ideas. Vote for the man who thought of them. With Hubert Humphrey, it's not just talk. He gets it done. The proceeding was a political announcement paid for by Citizens for Humphrey.
I'm E.G. Marshall, and I'd like to tell you what I've been thinking about. On November 5th, when each of us goes into that voting booth, we're going to be alone in there with one thing to do, and that's to vote for the best person we are capable of voting for. When I see this man, I think of feelings of my own which I don't like, but I have anyway. They're called prejudices. He has some, we have some. I think we have to recognize the fact that we have these feelings and that we have the right to conceal them or to express them if we want to. This is our freedom of speech and thought, our freedom from fear. This man running for the presidency is the living proof of this freedom. But his winning the presidency would be the living death of it. He is devoted now to his single strongest prejudice. He will take that prejudice and make it into national law. Then he will make other laws from other prejudices. We have heard him tell it as it is. What follows his election is no secret. Law and order, he will make the law, and we will take the orders. It's not a comfortable thought, having to live under the law of a man's personal prejudice when no one knows which way the prejudice will turn next. This man has had experience as a congressman, a senator, a vice president for 8 years. He has, in those years, served what he felt to be the interests of the American people. A question I ask is, which American people's interests has he served? The interests of men and women who work for a living in a factory, on a farm, in an office, a store, a TV studio? No, I don't think so. He has a record of being against minimum wages, against aid to education, against public housing, against consumer protection, against Medicare. He's been against many things that mean a lot to me. Now I've heard there's a new Nixon. But when I ask myself what is new about Nixon, I find this answer. His technique is new. In the past, he discussed and debated issues and he lost an election. Now he will not discuss and not debate, and in that way hopes to win an election. I can't trust a man like that to be my president. He talks of himself as the new leader of the people, but he can't tell us where he's going to lead us. Out of the war, how? Out of violence? Again, how? We have only his personal assurance that he'll get war and violence to disappear. This is no hero. There is no new Nixon. There's only the same old Nixon. In 1964, he campaigned for Barry Goldwater. In 1968, he is campaigning for Spyro Agnew. There is only one man of the three who trusts me and who trusts you. He has trust in our ability to distinguish right from wrong. He has trust in our determination to keep what we have worked hard for: our homes, our jobs, our safety, our right to say what it is we like and what it is we don't like. Over and over again, he has proven that it is the strength of our finest instincts, not our worst, that keeps us functioning as the strongest nation in the world. Now, he is asking us to trust him, to trust his belief that equal justice for every individual is our greatest protection and our greatest strength. He is asking us to trust his belief that the way to bring peace to warring nations and warring groups of people within a nation is to recognize the causes of these wars and work to get rid of them. This is the time when a good man can become a great man. I believe in Hubert Humphrey, and I trust him. And God willing, he will be our next president.